Okay, let's keep talking about, we're working on routes, controllers, and views. We've talked about routes, talked about controllers. Let's talk about views now. So views are passed data from the controllers or from the controller via instance variables. So any instance variables that you have in the controller will be made available. It's good practice not to think about, oh, I'm going to set tons and tons and tons of these things. So I've got lots of data. It's better to, in general, to be like, yeah, I have a model. And I've set like, for example, we could do, yeah, I have a book. All right, I have a song, whatever it is. I have a user. Maybe I have a user in a book, but it's not like, oh, I'm going to make a bunch of little teeny variables so that I have them all to give. It's more, I got this nice juicy object and I want this to be available because this object, this model that I have, has all this stuff computed in it already that I needed, or it's basically along those lines. All right, so the views are written in herb. I actually do not know what that acronym means, but basically it's set up. You've seen this already, but let's review it quickly. Everything not inside of these tags and not inside of these tags, the difference being these tags here have an equal sign, is, now let's be really clear. I'm about to write something on the whiteboard and it doesn't mean what I'm going to say. So that's why it's going to be in double quotes. Printed out. The real way to think about it is it's turned into the output that goes back to the user's browser. Okay, it's going to be HTML. It's kind of like printing it out, but it's important to note we do not do any printing in herb. Note. Do not do put, print, etc. That's not the way that we do output, all right? It's the content that we have in the view that gets produced, gets stored in a nice big string somewhere, a buffer or something, and then gets shipped back to the user for them to view in their browser. If you want to think about it like being printed out, I think that works kind of well to think about it that way. But you will never explicitly print anything out in a view. When puts and print, those are all commands that say, send output to the console, send it to standard output. Well, you're just inside of Rails running. There is no console. You're trying to send data back to the user. So these do not get used in views. All right. Now, another cool thing about views is we can put Ruby code inside these tags. So inside of these basically means run. This is going to be Ruby code inside of these tags. Outside, anything not inside these tags is just what gets sent back to the user, all right? But we can put code in there. And we can use them to control the flow and looping, etc. of what's going on in the view. All right. So, and again in quotes, because we don't really output, but to output value of a Ruby expression, we use these tags that have the equal sign. All right. So we go and we'll put an expression in there, and the result of that expression is what will kind of be output printed and eventually sent back to the user. Again, it's more like take the string representation of what that expression is and append that string to a big output string, and eventually that whole output string is all put together and sent back to the user. So let's do a quick example. I might have headers here in HTML. So H1, and I'll say there's an example. Then let's go ahead and use one of these tags. Put some Ruby code in here 5 times. Do I. We use a tag set per line. At least I do. I never go across lines with them. Let's put a paragraph tag. We'll have one of these tags that outputs the value. Another paragraph tag here to close the tag. And then we're done. So with our small example. So the way to read a view is just like a piece of code from top to bottom. And it might help you to think. Again, not what's really being done, but it can be nice to think about it this way, which is when I'm not inside of these special tags, it's like I'm just taking this code and like there is some sort of print out this HTML. It's just text, it's just a string. Print all that out. That's going to go back to the user's browser just like that. And so eventually the browser will see, I have a header1 tag with the example. I should close the header1 tag appropriately. Have to get your HTML correct. Anyways, so it's just kind of like, yeah, that's whatever I've written in this herb file, if it's not inside of these special tags, is just sort of, as I come down through, is what's getting output, all right? Now here, I've got a tag, and so inside of this tag is code, and so, oh, we're going to switch over to, instead of printing stuff, now I'm going to be running code, all right? So we know that this is 5 times, and each, there'll be a value put into I think it's maybe 1 through 5, I don't know. Well, it might be 0 through 4, who knows. Anyways, that value will go into I, but we're going to come into here, and this is outside the tags, so this P tag is just going to get output. But inside of here, oh, I have this Ruby expression, this variable I, and it's kind of like, you know, everywhere with these tags is this code, and everywhere without the tags, it's like it had been wrapped in print statements. And then you've got this big script that you're running in the view. But so this one says, take this value. I need a string representation of it. So whenever we need string representations in Ruby, everything in Ruby is an object. And so it calls to_s, so toString on it. So this will be some integer, and it'll get a string representation, and a string will go here then. And then we'll have our end tag. And then we see, we have our end statement here. And so this loops 5 times, and it produces our output. Okay, we get basically a bunch of HTML that goes back to the user. One thing I want to note is you really need to distinguish between this, which is to do output, so to speak, take this value and turn it into something, a nice string, and these, which are just do the code. There's no output with them, okay? If you mess this up, you will get errors and you'll go, why is it not working? And it's because you're trying to produce values for these things that shouldn't be producing values, like an end statement. An end statement doesn't have a value that you want output into the output. So don't just willy-nilly be putting your tags. You always have to do the right tag for the type of thing that you want. And then again, you're not going to call puts and you're not going to call print. Anyways, and don't forget your end tags. That's a real problem people have. They forget their end tags. All right. That's all we really need to say about views for the moment. We can talk more about views another time.